We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
In 5, 4, 3.
Hello, citizens of the internet. It's getting to the point where there is so much stuff going on that I have a tough time deciding what I should talk about and what I shouldn't. And maybe that's a good problem to have. I don't know. So a lot going on this past week or two. You know, the summer is in full swing. The kids are out of school. A lot of people going on vacations. And those guys in the submarine just took quite a vacation, right? Not to downplay the significance of the Titanic submarine story at all. But, you know, those guys getting lost in that submarine dominated the news cycle, I think, for a couple of reasons. A lot of what's going on in the political sphere is not good. For the people who currently hold power. Now, what's interesting about this is, I mean, the Republicans are not any better than the Democrats. Let's be honest. In fact, one of the biggest beefs I have with Joe Biden is that he is basically a Republican. I mean, whoa. I don't know how that happened, but someone shut my camera off as soon as I started talking about Joe Biden being a Republican. Imagine that. No, I'm my setup is not the most, let's say, high tech. So I do not think that it is a conspiracy. I do not think that anyone's trying to shut me down. I just think I have shoddy equipment that I'm live streaming on. So all that said, you know that we as a country paid a lot of attention this week to the lost submarine, and RIP to those guys in their submarine. Let's be honest, not the smartest decision on their part. I don't think I would have gotten into that thing. That was a good slang term for it. The floating death garbage can. What kind of a mental state do you have to be in to go miles underneath the ocean in something like that? I mean, going miles under the ocean is scary to begin with. I almost died in the ocean one time. I'm not, you know, if I'm, there's not a lot that I'm scared of, but the ocean is one of those things. You know, the ocean does not give a fuck. It almost killed me. And if you're that deep underneath the ocean, you better be in something that is just double, triple insured. I'm not taking any chances going under the ocean, first of all, but then in some third rate garbage can thing. I mean, anyway, the point of me even bringing that story up is because that's what America was talking about all week while real shit was actually happening. So let's dive right into this. The whole Hunter Biden thing has really started to come apart. And I wanted to mostly start with the Russiagate stuff because so I'm going to lead into the Hunter Biden thing from this because these are stories that broke this week. And this one has kind of a silver lining to it. So let's just listen to what Aaron has to say real quick.
Bring facts to the spreaders of disinformation. Aaron, I know that our time is almost up, but I don't know if you want to do a quick wrap up of Durham or Hunter Biden or anything, or the shift sensor, maybe in 5 minutes.
I wonder if we should say it for next time. because I think we'll need more time on it. Up to you though. But I mean, if we can try to do something quick, if you want.
Just give us a quick
Please do
wrap up
something
of
quick, Aaron.
All right. Well, so John Durham, who's been engaged in this never-ending investigation of the Russia investigation, he recently submitted his final report, which we've discussed, and the final report didn't come up with anything new. I mean, we already knew that the Trump-Russia investigation was baseless, but at least we had a U.S. government body, Durham's office, confirming that. He said that the investigation was baseless, shouldn't have been launched. And it was continued with fraud. The U.S., the FBI ignored all this countervailing evidence. They ignored intelligence, which they received at the very start of the entire Trump-Russia investigation, that Hillary Clinton was plotting to frame Trump as a Russian asset. So it confirmed all that. But he didn't go to all the places where he should have gone. He didn't actually touch the allegation, the foundational allegation that Russia hacked the DNC, even though, as I've written about recently, he actually uncovered new evidence showing that that was a scam, a Clinton campaign scam.
So I have another clip we can maybe show later when Aaron was on Jimmy Dore talking about this, but I think the significance of what he is saying here is that, Clinton, I mean, when you think about it, the FBI they're not going after Clinton for this, but despite them basically proving that she set Trump up with this Russiagate thing. And I've argued, hey, maybe Trump kind of deserved it because of the whole birth certificate thing. He was constantly giving Obama trash about the birth certificate, oh, he might be a secret Muslim, so it's kind of like, this is coming back on him. I don't really feel bad for Trump. And I've had people come at me like, oh, Obama really was a secret Muslim. Okay. Whatever. Maybe at this point, who knows? Given the last four years, maybe, but point being, Clinton was the head of the State Department when all this went on. So it's not like they were going to do anything to her anyway. She was in a position of political power and fully expected to be president, after all that ended. So anyway, just to keep going with what Aaron was nailing here, let's just keep watching.
Anyway, he appeared before Congress, and it was a kind of an underwhelming appearance. Democrats, members of Blue Anon, attacked him for daring to challenge their conspiracy theory, and they clung to anything they could to make the conspiracy theory look credible. But here's an exchange where basically Durham discusses, I think, one of the most important parts of his investigation, which is that the FBI knew that Clinton was plotting to frame Trump as a Russian asset. But instead of investigating the Clinton campaign, they used her material, like the Steele dossier, for leads and even surveillance warrants.
2016, did our government receive intelligence that suggested Secretary Clinton had approved a plan to tie President Trump to Russia?
Yes.
Was that intelligence important enough for Director Brennan to go brief the President of the United States, the Vice President of the United States, the Attorney General of the United States, and the Director of the FBI?
Yes.
And was that intelligence put then into a memorandum, a referral memorandum?
Yes.
And was that memorandum then given to Director Comey and Agent Strzok?
That's who it was addressed to, yes.
Did Director Comey share that memorandum with the FISA court?
I'm sorry,
Did he share that memorandum with the FISA court? Did Director Comey do that?
I'm not aware of that if he did.
Did he share it with the lawyers preparing the FISA application?
Not to my knowledge.
Did he share it with the agents on the case, working the Crossfire Hurricane case?
No.
Didn't share it with the agents on the case. Can you tell the committee what happened when you took that referral memo and shared it with one of those agents, specifically Supervisory Special Agent number 1?
We interviewed the first supervisor of the Crossfire investigation, the operational person. We showed him the intelligence information. He indicated he had never seen it before. He immediately became emotional, got up and left the room with his lawyer, spent some time in the hallway, came back.
He was ticked off, wasn't he?
Yes.
He was ticked off because this is something he should have had as an agent on the case, is important information that the director of the FBI kept from the people doing the investigation.
The information was kept from him.
So basically, you get the idea. I'm sure that was going to throw me an ad, so I'm glad that it froze up a little bit there. But what they're kind of touching on here is what kind of the theme has been with the press in general for the last couple of years. It's not that they flat out lie to people, they lie by omission. So they leave things out that people need to know. And what they're kind of grilling him about here is, okay, this guy knew that this was kind of a farce, but they didn't share that information with the FBI. And it speaks to the whole argument about the professional managerial class, and something that some of these whistleblowers have said before about the corruption is at the managerial level of the FBI, where it's the office people that kind of send the orders down to the agents on the ground. It's not the everyday blue collar FBI agents. Most of those guys are good people. It's the J. Edgar Hoover level, bureaucrats in the State Department, or in the state, not the State Department, the FBI, that are the ones who are running this cover. So it's kind of when people talk about a conspiracy theory, it's an actual conspiracy. It's not a theory. It's a conspiracy of people working together to make sure that this information gets kept from people who might go, oh, wow, we should shut this down. And there's proof throughout the whole Russiagate thing that there were attempts to shut it. The FBI a couple of times was like, hey, we can probably drop this, like we're not finding anything, but they kept it going anyway. So let's listen to Aaron for just a couple more minutes here.
Durham's being asked about this core finding that the FBI knew from the start. They received warnings at the highest level from the CIA that they had intelligence that Clinton was plotting to frame Trump as a Russian asset. And this intelligence was so important that it was briefed to Obama and Biden in late July 2016, right when the Russia investigation kicked off. And what Durham is saying here is that instead of doing anything with that, the FBI buried it. So Comey got a specific warning about this, and he buried it. They didn't tell anybody on the Crossfire Hurricane team. They buried it. And then when a member of the Crossfire Hurricane team found out about this from Durham, he became very upset. That's what Durham's talking about there. And amazingly, Comey, he's been asked about this once before Congress, and he was asked, like, do you recall being warned that by a referral memo that the Clinton campaign was plotting to frame Trump? This is again in 2016 when all this was getting off the ground. And Comey said, it doesn't ring any bells. So Comey claimed not to even remember that the conspiracy theory he was investigating of Trump as a Russian asset was really being concocted by his opponent, by Clinton. And Comey says it doesn't ring any bells. So that just underscores that Comey was a part of an operation to set up Trump and is now covering it up. And Durham, rather than interviewing Comey, he didn't, because Comey said no, and Durham didn't issue a subpoena of him. And that's an illustration of the fact that even though Durham uncovered some important or underscored some important revelations, he didn't exert his authority to get to the truth, to the point where Jim Comey, Peter Strzok, Andrew McCabe, all senior officials in the Trump-Russia probe, all of them declined to speak to them. He didn't subpoena them. So Durham caved ultimately, even though he's saying some important things. And just to underscore this, on the core allegation of Russian interference, Durham also didn't touch that. He left it unscathed. And he was asked during this hearing, like, did you look into the allegations that Russia hacked the DNC? He said, that was outside of my scope, which is not true, because William Barr, who appointed Durham, says in his book that actually the hacking of the DNC was within Durham's scope. So Durham chose not to go there. And the reason he chose not to go there, I think, for the same reason he chose not to question these intelligence officials like Comey, is because he didn't want to really actually take on the national security state. He was willing to go to acknowledge what was already public, which is that this was a scam and that this was baseless and that this was a Clinton campaign operation. But he wouldn't challenge the Russian hacking allegation, because this allegation has been so central, not just to, this partisan fight over Trump and framing as a Russian asset, but also, more importantly, criminalizing diplomacy with Russia, because the allegation that Russia took these emails, that was used to accuse Russia of invading our democracy, of committing a cyber 9/11, and that contributed to this climate, as Max and I were warning about tirelessly when it was happening, of criminalizing diplomacy with Russia, demonizing Russia, and setting the stage for things like the Ukraine proxy war.
So I'm going to stop right there, because the point that Aaron made, the reason I showed that clip as long as I did, the point that Aaron made about Durham, there's a follow-up to that I saw today, that because Aaron's been out there talking about this quite a bit. Like he's been out there in the press going, hey, Durham had the ability to really go after people that he did not. And of course, you'd be called a conspiracy theorist to say that he was covering for him. But I want to point this out to you because, no one's perfect. And in Congress, the Democrats are obviously, I was a Justice Democrat. I was a progressive who worked to elect people like AOC and Cory Bush and Jamal Bowman and all these Justice Democrats. They're obviously not going to challenge the current power structure because they're part of it. And there's this weird bipartisan consensus about this garbage, but there are Republicans who, despite not being great on a lot of other stuff, are at least pushing the envelope here and playing the role of the opposition party and really holding people's feet to the fire. And one of those people is Matt Gaetz. And I again, Nick Cruz posted something about Gaetz the other day, kind of being hawkish with China. And I disagree. I don't like that. But I do think Gaetz is still one of the best people in Congress. And hold on, let me just make double sure here that, let me just make absolutely sure that this has sound on it before I hit it live. Yeah, here we go. Okay. So listen to this so everything that Aaron Matei just said about Durham, remember what he said about how Durham, didn't want to challenge the security state and kind of didn't really follow through on a lot of things that he should have. Oh, hold on a second. Let me turn that back on.
Okay. I know, I'm just giving you
I
opportunity.
was gonna, I didn't get there.
Yeah.
So listen to
The
this.
gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Biggs. You've given us testimony today that you're disappointed that the FBI didn't cooperate more, right? That was your testimony.
Said that.
Yeah, so we're disappointed too, but the difference is when regular folks do things that are wrong and unlawful, there's typically greater effort to try to get those people before a grand jury to utilize criminal process where appropriate, not for other purposes. And it's just like, oh, well, Bill Priestep, the guy who might have set this whole op in motion, he just didn't want to talk to you about certain things, and you were real accommodating to that. And then Mifsud, the person who uses Papadopoulos to create this predicate that you find improper. You guys, did you ever know who his lawyer was, Mifsud's lawyer?
Talked to his lawyer in Europe. I don't know if
So wait, you could find the guy's lawyer, but you couldn't find him?
We contacted somebody that we knew had represented him in a part of the effort to try to locate him.
And you got the lawyer. And then now you're sitting here in front of the judiciary saying you could find the guy's lawyer, but you couldn't effectuate the service of a subpoena because you couldn't find him?
Well,
do you know
first
how
of all,
silly that sounds?
as you may or may not know, we wouldn't have the authority to serve a subpoena overseas. The lawyer didn't know where Mifsud was. He was in communication with him, but he claimed not to know where he was. And we were trying to arrange an opportunity to talk to Mifsud.
Did you take possession of 2 BlackBerry phones from Mifsud in any way?
There were phones that were provided to us by
So you could find the
Mifsud's
phones, but
lawyer.
not the guy.
Correct?
Do you see how silly this looks? Like you found the lawyer, you found the phones, but the actual dude who got ordered by Western intelligence to go start this thing you couldn't find? It's kind of laughable. It seems like more than disappointment. It seems like you weren't really trying to expose the true core of the corruption. That you were trying to go at it another way.
Yeah.
It does seem like that. And this is why people like Matt Gaetz are over the target. And every 5 minutes, you're going to hear a story about how he's a white supremacist or an anti-Semite or an anti-vaxxer or a pedophile or whatever. And it's a Nazi, a fascist, whatever. Everyone in Florida is a fascist now. So
As we said in the report, and as I said in my opening remarks, we pursued the facts as best we could.
Well, how about this
tools
fact?
that we have?
Okay, how about this fact, Mr. Durham? The entire Mueller team does a hard reset on their Apple phone in synchronization to wipe away evidence. Did you investigate that?
I did not know about this.
I've read that.
I've read that. Yeah, it's your investigation, bro.
Well, why did you investigate it? Who gave the order on the Mueller team to wipe the phones?
Yeah, that was not something that we were asked to look at, and we didn't.
No,
look
that's
at that.
not true, Mr. Durham. That is not true, because I'm holding the document that authorizes your activity, and it specifically says the investigation of Special Counsel Robert Mueller. It's in Mr. Chairman, I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record the order that says that you're supposed to investigate these things. And so, like, whether it's the Mueller team, MIFSUD, how about Azra Turk? Azra Turk, what's Azra Turk's real name? Do you know that?
I'm not going to be disclosing the names of FBI personnel that are otherwise unavailable.
But an FBI, so the FBI sends somebody to go honeypot George Papadopoulos. Who gave the order to do that?
I think that's beyond the scope of what's in the report.
It's literally the scope of what your charging order is. Who put it in motion?
This is really interesting stuff. Honeypot George Papadopoulos. Like, you've heard about all this stuff and how they got these FISA warrants so that they could tap all Trump's campaign people's phones. And then basically what they did was indict them all in lying to the FBI. Pretty much all the indictments, if you read the indictments for the Trump campaign from the Mueller team, are for lying to the FBI, because what they did was they got FISA warrants and they tapped their phones and then interviewed them. And when their interview transcripts didn't match the things that were on the wiretaps, they indicted them for lying to the FBI.
We get, after it was put in motion, the FBI did a bunch of wrong and corrupt things. Totally understand. We're trying to deal with that. But when you are part of the cover-up, Mr. Durham, then it makes our job harder.
Yeah, well, if that's your thought, I mean, there's no way of dissuading you from that. I can tell you that it's offensive and that.
See, I love this pearl clutching that these people do. Like, oh, you're hurting Americans.
People who worked on this investigation have spent their lives trying to protect the people in this country and pursue within the law what it is that we are authorized to do.
You tried 2 cases, lost both of them, and then the one guilty plea you got, Kleinsmith is back to practicing law in Washington, D.C. today.
Yeah, that's beyond my control.
Right, but
that's crazy. And the thing I like about how Gates opened is he opened with, hey, like, normal people wouldn't skate like this. The average, so you're talking about the law, like you're all self-righteous, Durham. Oh, you're trying to be within the law. Yeah, the law doesn't obviously apply. If this was me that they were coming after, or someone like me who isn't a connected Washington lawyer, do you think that they would be affording me these kind of well, we just couldn't find them, so we couldn't talk to them. Oh, whoops, our bad. Yeah, you gotta deal with what you can. No, they'd be doing everything they can. Like Julian Assange doesn't get to skate like that. Well, we couldn't find them, so guess we're just gonna have to let him skate for a while.
the fact that you allowed that plea to occur, right? And then the punishment was insufficient. The fact that you didn't charge Andrew McCabe, you didn't convict the lying Democrats or the lying Russians, you didn't investigate MIFSUD or the Mueller probe, even though, as we sit here today in black letter, that was your charge. Have you ever heard of the Washington Generals?
The Washington Generals, yes.
Yeah.
This is great.
They're the team
This
that
is
basically
great.
gets paid to show up and lose, right?
Well, I'm sure that the players who exert blood, sweat, and tears don't view it that way, but you might.
I think they do. I think they do, because the job of the Washington Generals is to show up every night and to play the Harlem Globetrotters.
So he obviously didn't know who the Washington Generals were. When people talked about the Washington Generals, I thought they were talking about like the Washington football team, but he's right. And he defends the Washington Generals. He's like, well, I'm sure that they put their blood, sweat, and tears in, and they would disagree. And it's like, no, they wouldn't. They know that they're there to be beaten.
And their job
I'm
is
thinking,
to
I'm
lose.
sorry, of a different, I was thinking of a different thing.
Yeah. So their job is to lose. And I'm kind of wondering, and it just seems so facially obvious that it's not what's in your report that's telling. It's the omission. It's the lack of work you did. And for the people like the chairman who put trust in you, I think you let them down. I think you let the country down. And you are one of the barriers to the true accountability that we need.
Do I get to respond to that or comment on that?
Anyway, I don't care what his response is. Thank you, Matt Gaetz, for doing the work that needs to be done. And Aaron Matei's probably on vacation. But hopefully he's seen that. I'm sure he probably has. He pays attention to this kind of stuff. So he probably saw that and was clapping too, because this is what he's been saying all along, is that Durham is not following through. He's not actually doing anything with what he's finding. He's not going after these people. He's not holding anyone accountable, really. He's just, like Gates just pointed out, the one guy that he did prosecuted is already back to work as a lawyer. So there really is a two-tier justice system where there's only accountability for people like you and me, and not people like that. And John Durham here tries to use that whole like, oh, we're trying to be. He tries to play the heartstrings of, we're true patriots trying to protect the American people, and we're trying to stay within the boundaries of the law and whatever. No, you're not. No, you're not. If you were, you'd be going after these people. But you're, like Gates said, he's the Washington Generals. He's the hired to lose team. And it is really discouraging to see that. I mean, what is going to happen? What's going to come of this? Probably nothing. It's good that Gates is doing that, but no one saw it because everyone was busy talking about the submarine. That's from June 21st. That hearing was June 21st, which is basically a week ago. And no one saw it. No one knows about it. Good on Forbes for posting that clip, but everyone's busy talking about the sub and how dumb those guys on the sub were, and missing stuff like this, which is actually important news that everyone should be paying attention to. And we wonder why we have the situation that we have, because this is the world we live in, where everybody's busy yapping about a bunch of dipshits who, got into a garbage can and went 2 miles into the ocean and were shocked that they died. Meanwhile, our democracy being subverted is being exposed in front of our eyes, and no one's really paying attention to it. And January 6th, I guess it's like, if you think January 6th, a bunch of people with no guns, protesters who were let into the Capitol visibly on footage that you can see if you look for it. And I'm not saying there weren't people that didn't commit crimes, because there were, and those people get what they deserve. They should face if they broke the law, they deserve. But it's interesting to me that is people drama queen about that as this threat to democracy, but stuff like this, which is basically the visible subversion of the will of the voters, is acceptable because people have been trained that Trump is such a threat that they're okay with this. And it's so funny to me to see it online, because at this point, if that still works on you, you are a rube. I mean, Biden's administration on every level is the same or worse than Trump's. So that being scared of Trump at this point isn't a good campaign tactic for the Democrats anymore. And that all depends on if you think voting matters, really. I mean, a lot of people believe that voting at this point is like is the adult version of writing a letter to Santa Claus, which it's hard not to argue that at this point, because I've said this several times, but I've been voting for Democrats for 20 years and not a thing has changed. And the other slogan I use is, if you vote for Republicans, you get war and tax cuts. If you vote for Democrats, you get war and tax cuts draped in a rainbow flag. And that is without a doubt how it is. With Obama, change we can believe in. I mean, it was change we can believe in while they keep doing wars behind your back, while they're going like, hey, look at what we did. We did healthcare. It was just a massive handout to the health insurance industry, and the thing that Mitt Romney had already done in Massachusetts and Bob Dole proposed in the 90s. But hey, we did it. We did it. Yay. Yay. That's the Democratic Party of the last 20 years. Just mindless PR, an exaltation for things that like tiny little incrementalist things that eventually get washed away anyway. What a freaking joke it is. So I'm just gonna take a quick little break here, and I'll come back in just a minute with some more stuff.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. And thing sucks.
In 5, 4.
We're back. We are back. So I try not to talk too much trash. Okay, maybe that's a lie. I don't want my entire show or my entire time spent on live stream to be talking shit. So we'll keep this brief. But it never ceases to amaze me how far some people have fallen, because I think the sad fact of things is that a lot of people in the political talk space, particularly in leftist venues, I would say, if you can call it that. I don't consider myself a leftist by any means anymore, because the left is right at this point. You know, they support the Ukraine war and censorship and all kinds of ridiculous things. But I just want to show you how obvious and ridiculous it is that people like Kyle Kalinske here he's so clearly a Democratic partisan at this point. Look at this. Did you see the latest? So the whole thing is just like, it's the stupid meme. I haven't even seen the comments, but it's one, he's reduced to doing these stupid MS Paint memes in defense of Joe Biden, and it's not a good look, bro. Dickie McGeezax. It's there's actually a story here, and the fact that you're ignoring the story in favor of doing these stupid and maybe I'm just upset because that kind of looks like me. I don't know. But no, it really doesn't. The point I'm getting to is that okay, maybe a little. The point I'm getting to is that it's sad to see Kyle being so clearly a paid shill at this point. Like any level of authenticity is completely gone at this point. It's I would have to assume that the majority of the people that follow Kyle and still listen to what he has to say are either, the 500 people that still watch MSNBC, and not either, but a combination of the 500 people that still watch MSNBC and Sally Albright's bot army. That's what I would guess Kyle's audience is at that point, because otherwise, why would you listen to him? He's basically saying the same stuff you would hear on MSNBC. So in the real world, what's happening is people who are, doing actual kind of journalism that's critical of power are having conversations like this. So check this out. This is how terrible Kyle has gotten too, because this is actually like mainstream press. This is, watch.
After this.
Yeah, okay, so go ahead and play this one here. Watch this.
And secondly, the president invited his son Hunter to the state dinner last night. I'm wondering if you could take us into the thinking and decision-making of why the president decided to invite.
I'm just not going to get into family discussion, personal family discussion. As you know, Hunter is his son. I'm just not going to get into it.
Let me ask you this. If Hunter Biden wasn't the president's son, would he have invited someone who had just reached a plea agreement with federal prosecutors 2 days earlier?
A couple of things. Again, that's his son. He's a family member. It is not uncommon for family members to attend events at the White House. You could look at past presidents. I'm sure you have. So that is not uncommon. As it relates to anything related to Hunter, I'm just not going to respond to it from here.
Yeah, we'll play that.
Can I follow up on that?
Okay. No, I just called in somebody. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Kirby wouldn't answer James's question. Are you going to answer the question? It's not a reasonable question to ask whether the President of the United States was involved.
These are not Fox News. I'm shocked that they're asking.
In some sort of coercive conversation for business dealings by his son. Is that something, if he wasn't, then maybe you should tell us?
So here's the thing, and I appreciate the question. I believe my colleague at the White House Council has answered this question already, has dealt with this, has made it very clear. I just don't have anything to share outside of what my colleagues have shared. And so I would refer you to him and the DOJ.
Another question
coming. Just not going to comment from
what?
here.
It goes on and
on. What I can tell you is I know that my colleague has dealt with this. He addressed this at the White House Council. I just don't have anything else to share. I just answered the question. I just answered the question. I just answered. Stephen,
she's getting mad.
Stephen, I just answered the question. I just said, it's not up to you how I answer the question. I just answered the question by telling you my colleagues at the White House Council has dealt with this, and I would refer you to them.
Another one coming.
Can you just remind us what your colleague said from the White House Council so we have it?
I would refer you to them, and they will share their statement with all of you.
My question is about your statements from that podium. You've stated that the president stands by his comment from the 2020 campaign that he never once discussed his son's overseas business dealings with his son. and you stood at that podium and you reaffirmed that. Do you stand by your reaffirmation?
What I will say is nothing has changed. Nothing has changed, and I will leave it there. Anything else, I will refer you to the White House counsel.
They're asking the right question. But wait, keep
I
going.
just answered the question. You just asked me, does my
bad
statement
look.
change? I just told you nothing
No
has changed.
wonder
That's
people don't
answering your
trust the
question.
White House.
Another one coming.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead, Stephen.
Look, Stephen.
I'm calling on your colleague right now.
Yo, thank you for your.
To follow up on my colleague, is there anything that you can say with regard to
No matter who she
this
goes to, they won't
text
stop.
message and what the president's son was alleging? Was the president there or not?
I would refer you to my colleagues at the White House.
Zero.
Counsel. They
No
have addressed this,
credibility.
and I refer you to them. Go ahead.
But that's like Neil deGrasse Tyson.
To the president about this? Have you asked him
And
whether
this-
he
this
was
is-
there with his
They
son
won't
on
debate.
July
They can't
3rd?
debate.
This
This
is
is
not a
horrible.
conversation
You
that
know-
I've had with the president. Again, I will
Okay,
refer you
pause
to
it
the
for a
White House.
second, and I want to finish this. Let me tell you why this is horrible. Let me tell you why this is horrible. Here's why it's horrible. Because, okay, flip it and say, well, the same thing happened with Kellyanne, McEnany, or et cetera, and said, no, the difference is this is liberals, Republicans, left, right, every single outlet wants to know the same exact thing. And she keeps giving the same answer. Matter of fact, finish it up real quick. I want to watch the whole thing.
Almost done.
And then go to Kirby right after that. Go ahead. And then we'll go to the Hunter clip.
House counsel.
Do you plan to have that conversation with the president?
No.
Did the president speak with the attorney general at all
I
last
can't.
night?
I cannot say if the president had a conversation with the attorney general last night. What I can refer you to is the White House counsel's office as it relates to the allegations. They've already addressed this. This is something for them to deal with. I refer you to the Department of Justice on anything else if you don't want to speak to the White House counsel's office.
And there was reporting earlier in the week that
So, you know what Karine Jean-Pierre should have done? Instead of referring those people to, what was it, the White House counsel statement, or what was she referring them to? Like, you gotta read the White House counsel statement. If Karine Jean-Pierre was smart, what she would have done is pulled up a blackboard with this meme on it, or pulled up like a display, a deck or whatever, like a projector screen, and then she could have showed this to the press and been like, yeah, you guys are dummies. They want to see some more pictures of Hunter Biden's cock. Why you guys keep asking me about Hunter Biden's cock, bro? It's like, that's all you care about, bro, is Hunter Biden's cock, man. It's like, it's all about Hunter Biden's cock. By the way, Kyle, Crystal's husband definitely has, I'm gonna start referring to Kyle from now on as Crystal's husband. Crystal's husband posts a lot about Hunter Biden's cock. Like whenever there's any question, or there's any, and again, I kind of wanted to juxtapose these two items just to show you that there is a serious conversation happening around Hunter Biden and corruption. And I mean, the Burisma thing was Russian propaganda, whatever. It's all Russian propaganda. Anything that I don't like is a Russian plot, of course. But just to hammer that point home, for Kyle, it's always about Hunter's dick. For Crystal's husband, it's always about Hunter Biden's penis. Just scroll through his feed casually and you'll see. Whenever it's about Hunter Biden, Crystal's husband wants to talk about his dick. That's where his conversation goes. And, I've seen this because being someone who's coherent and has a brain and can read things, I see this talking point a lot from the paid hacks. Oh, you guys just want to talk about Hunter Biden's cock. I think Cenk Uygur and his, band of Sally Albright bots have been repeating it. So you can see these talking points kind of being kind of speckled throughout the online space, like little flecks of bullshit that they are. People say, oh, this is, the whole thing's unserious. It's, the insinuation is that it's an unserious thing and it's all about Hunter's penis and dick pics or whatever, because they got into it. This is called spin doctors bullshit. And Kyle is one of them. And it's so clear. And I don't think he realizes that one of the reasons, I mean, the main reason people like me liked Kyle back in the day, before I even considered doing live streams myself, is because he was authentic. He was telling truths about what was going on. And he had like a really fresh and an intelligent way of breaking down the political noise and kind of like cutting through all that noise and telling it like it is. Now, Crystal's husband is just another one of the MSNBC. He might as well be Stan Cedar or the Humanist Beard or David Dull or any of the, you know, the Cleftist Mafia or whatever those guys are. You know, the fake ass mafia of DNC puppets who just repeat these, like I said, these kind of like focus group talking points. Okay, well, if we make it about Hunter's dick, then it's like, yeah, there's some weird stuff there with him smoking crack and banging hookers and everything, but we can kind of like just hang it all on that, because most sane people don't really care about that. You know, everyone's done a little drugs and had a little wild sex. If you haven't lived a little, if you haven't, you know, and so if you haven't, please get out there and do that. You know, don't do anything illegal. I'm not telling you to do anything illegal. I would not advise that. I would never, ever give anyone the advice to do anything illegal. What I am saying is live your life and enjoy it. And the reality is we're not upset at Hunter Biden for that. You know, I mean, he's a rich kid. Of course he's going to do that. What we're upset about is the obfuscation and the double standard, because if that was Donald Trump Jr., do you think his laptop full of, you know, videos of him smoking crack would be the same, held to the same standard? Of course not. And so it's very obvious why these people are doing this. And, you know, it's very transparent that Crystal's husband is obsessed with Hunter Biden's penis. So on that note, I am going to take another quick break and set up another little segment for y'all. And yeah, we will return right after this.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. And things.
I love Billo. So I was trying to dig up some other clips, but I just wanted to share this little clip that Cornel West is running for president. Okay. And I'm going to do a much more thorough piece on him at some point because I love this man. And he is currently the person that I will be voting for. And I'll tell you why for a couple reasons. Actually, let me turn this off for a second. I talked about this on my last stream, but Cornel West is over the target, and the Democrats are already freaking out and coming out with their, a vote for a third party is a vote for right wing or vote for Trump or whatever, and that should not scare anyone. Again, because if you've been watching or paying attention to anything, nothing. Biden said this when he was running, nothing will fundamentally change if I'm elected, and nothing has fundamentally changed at all. In fact, it's gotten worse. Jimmy Dore makes this point a lot, and I think it's a great point. The Democrats are actually the greater of the two evils. And the reason for that is because when Democrats are able to get away with things that Republicans cannot. If Trump was president right now, do you think we would be, liberals would be cheering for war with Russia? Do you think liberals would be cheering for war with China? Of course not. They were freaking out when he was president, saying that was what he was going to do. And the reality is for all Trump's faults, and there are many, he was one of the few presidents who actually was open to talking to people like Kim Jong-un and Putin. And that drove the security state insane. There were articles that came out about Trump sinking defense stocks when he talked to Kim Jong-un, So anyway, one of the reasons, back to the point that I'm about Cornel West, one of the reasons he is so beloved is, first of all, because he's just a great person, a very kind and empathetic and caring and educated and just a warm and understanding person. But he's also been a critic of empire for a long time and was one of the few Black leaders who was willing to criticize Barack Obama. So listen to this.
I'm glad there was not a right-wing takeover, but we end up with a Rockefeller Republican in blackface with Barack Obama, so that our struggle in regard to poverty intensifies.
That's a pretty rough assessment of President Obama.
Oh, that's what we have. That's what we have. Richard Nixon is to the left of him on health care. Richard Nixon's to the left of him on guaranteed income. And the same policies in terms of imperial foreign policy is at work. I'm glad there was not a right-wing takeover.
So you get the idea. Cornel West is my choice right now. Sorry. So Cornel West, that's why I love the guy. The guy has integrity. And I'll say this again. I think it was Tavis Miley who said, president is not on brand for Cornel West. And I said, good. We don't want on brand. That's exactly why Trump won a couple years ago, Tavis, because people don't want on brand. Joe Biden is terrible. And it's not because I'll say this again too. It's not even because I dislike Joe Biden. I don't even think, for all his corruption and shit garbage that he's done over his career in politics, him as a person, I really don't think that ill of him as a person. I think he's probably fine. He seems like a good dad. He seems like a good man at his core. He's just trying to get that scratch, whatever. What is terrible about Joe Biden is the fact that he controls nothing. He's a puppet, and the people that are running his administration are the terrible people. The people like Victoria Nuland and Anthony Blinken and all these people that are just hawks, that neocons that have kind of slowly moved into the Democratic Party where it's nice and comfortable to do war draped in a rainbow flag, and I think someone like Cornel West, it's the same thing with a Bernie Sanders. Someone like Cornel West for running for president is just a non-starter for these people, because he doesn't look like a guy in a suit that the industries who puppet politicians can puppet. Bernie Sanders was a non-starter for the same reasons. He's got messy hair. He's cares about people. That's arguable at this point because he got absolutely nothing for, giving his following to Joe Biden, who is a right-wing warmonger, pro-censorship, authoritarian criminal. Like, there's all these things coming to light. Where's Kyle's meme when you need it? Anyone who criticizes the president is a meme now. It's like, why would you do that, bro? You're just talking about Hunter's cock, man. That's what Cornel West is. Why is Cornel West obsessed with Hunter's cock? That would be Kyle's. I'm sure Kyle's working on a video on that right now. So, okay. I don't even have to go to a break now. Let's just switch gears because I got a couple more things that I want to touch on before we cut out here. So first thing, there was a clip recently that went viral on social media of Roseanne Barr on Theo Von's podcast being, I guess you could say, an anti-Semite. Well, the funny thing is, or maybe it's not funny, Roseanne Barr is Jewish. And the stuff she says in that clip is surrounded by a larger conversation that I think, like, I almost believe that she said these things because she knew that someone would clip them out and like force people to go watch the video and see the full version of what she said, because there's a larger conversation. And a lot of people forget that Roseanne Barr ran for president a few years ago, and she ran on an anti-war platform with the mother of a kid who died in Iraq, Cindy Sheehan. And she worked with Cynthia McKinney and the senator who's a black woman in Georgia. And we'll touch on this a little bit, but so check this out. We're going to watch a little bit of this because this whole conversation here is pretty interesting. And I think I have a special place in my heart for Roseanne too, because she's from Utah and I spent some time in Utah myself. So check this out. Let's watch this real quick. So full context again, there was this clip of Roseanne, and this is Theo Von's podcast, talking about, she's basically denying the Holocaust. But I think, you be the judge. I'm definitely not doing that. But I think she's doing it to be funny. Like I said, I believe she's saying something shocking like that to get people to watch the context.
And they'll have a comedian robots that'll come up and they'll tell, like, they'll get it out of the encyclopedia, everybody's act for free. And they'll just program the robots to tell the jokes that have already been told that people haven't heard. And, we won't have jobs no more.
But I don't know if they could ever do that. They could never replicate you, I don't think.
They're talking about AI taking over comedy.
Sure they could. They couldn't come up with the material, but
Right.
they could use my old material. There's enough of it out there.
Yeah, but watching some, and they'd probably cast a man to be it. So watch.
Oh, definitely. They'd put a man in. Definitely. Put a man in. For sure. For fucking A sure.
But I don't know if the robots, I don't know. So I think we're in an interesting time where comedians are kind of like the last people that can kind of, or even can speak. A lot of people can't speak in their jobs. They get like attacked for speaking up online of any of their thoughts or feelings. They're like the only people, comedians are kind of the only people that can speak. And the platforms now keep you from saying certain things. I mean,
Right.
it seems like they're getting a little more free with Elon. in Twitter, but I don't know like
The
if
platforms keep you from saying certain things.
that will happen with a lot of platforms, but YouTube will take down clips if you have certain things, if people are talking, even thinking about things that they consider misinformation or go against their guidelines.
Yeah.
Which is, it's their business, but it's weird because that's the business that we use to communicate on now.
Yeah, it's all bullshit. It's all. When I ran for president in 2012, one of my platform things was I will outlaw bullshit.
Yeah.
Because, and I know that horrified people because what will they do now?
Right.
They're addicted to it. They'd rather have that than food or a happy family. They're so addicted to their fucking bullshit.
It's true.
I love Roseanne. I gotta admit, I love how I like how just I like how unafraid and just raw she is. And she's an older lady now, but she looks great. She looks amazing.
True, huh?
But comics, I think we're the less free speech art form. And as long as we're performing, things ain't as bad as they could be. I think that's true.
As long as we're performing, things aren't as bad as they could be.
Yeah.
And that's always been the case throughout time, like with jesters or with people that was trying to speak up and share. There's always been a ceiling on speech, hasn't there, in a way?
Of course. Nobody wants to hear the real truth.
See, there's always so I just to frame that whole context again, they're talking about the point there is as long as we're talking, it's still okay. Comedians are still talking. Anyway,
They're horrified. I'd rather go with bullshit. It's easier.
And
like for the real truth that, and I'm glad that they did set up all these guidelines so that we only are allowed to speak the truth. And the truth is that Biden got 81 million votes by winning 36 counties. And that is just incredible. It really, really is. And that of these 81 million supporters who gave him more votes than any president has ever gotten before, he came with a mandate from these 81 million voters. And, I'm just glad that they were very careful to make sure that nobody could detract from that proven truth. You know what I mean?
Like, what do you mean? Like that
that they mandated that was the truth and that nobody could say, well, what about no?
Oh, it was made a mandate.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
So the government made it a mandate?
Yeah, because, YouTube did, and so did all the social.
So you can't even speak on that in those platforms.
No, you can't say,
that it wasn't.
You can't say that, like,
the
there
election was rigged. Right.
That's all a lie. The election was not rigged. 36 counties can give you 81 million votes.
Right.
That's a fact.
So it wasn't rigged.
Of course not.
Yeah.
36 counties have 81 million people in them.
Yeah.
See?
So this is the precursor to the viral clip that everyone was trying to share online as outrage porn on social media.
That's the truth. And don't you dare say anything against it or you'll be off YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and all the other ones, because we have, there's such a thing as the truth and facts, and we have to stick to it. And,
it's scary.
And that is the truth. And nobody died in the Holocaust either.
No.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
It should happen. 6 million Jews should die right now because they cause all the problems in the world, but it never happened.
Yeah.
Mandated.
Well, because you're part Jewish, right? Part of your family's Jewish?
I'm all Jewish.
You're all Jewish.
100%.
And a lot of Hollywood is Jewish. Yeah. It's like a lot of Hollywood is a Jewish business, really. Well, they started Hollywood.
Yeah.
Right.
So that is clearly a joke. It's clearly a setup for the joke. She says she does the Holocaust denial thing, I think, as a joke to rebut what she said about the election stuff, where she's saying, this was all true. This is all true. And then she's denying the Holocaust after that, just to show you, hey, like I can't say this, but I can deny the Holocaust. And maybe that was unintentional. I don't know, but I think it's pretty brilliant. And I think another part of it is, comedians can use that like shock and outrage to draw you into something. I know I always love metal bands and people like Howard Stern for this, because they do shocking things. Like a band like Slayer, for example, has a song called Angel of Death, and it's this like graphic, horrific imagery with Satanism and all this stuff. But when you really read into what Angel of Death is, it's a story about Auschwitz during World War II. Slayer ain't denying the Holocaust. You know, they're writing a song about the horrors of it, and one of the guys who participated in it, part of documented history. So I think, you know, just to draw that parallel, Roseanne Barr is denying the Holocaust, but the larger conversation around that, from the context of it, you can tell she's doing it as a joke to point out how ridiculous it is that you can say that, but not the other things she said before it. You know what I mean? So anyway, I thought that was really cool. And in other Roseanne news, she also had she did a podcast, and so that was Theo Vaughn's podcast, but Roseanne also has her own podcast, and she recently did an episode with James O'Keefe, and there's just a little piece of that I want to highlight as well that I thought was really cool, where I think it's about right. Let me find it real quick. Right here. Okay. So anyway, Roseanne had James O'Keefe on her podcast, and the more that I watch James O'Keefe, man, whether you agree or disagree with that guy, he's got gigantic balls to do the stuff that he's doing. I don't know if you saw the thing he did with these undercover kind of hidden camera, basically exposés. I mean, that's journalism. You know, that's real journalism. That's like getting at something, exposing something that needs to be exposed to people. I mean, it's the reason Julian Assange is in jail, you know. But watch this bit, and let's just talk about this, because this is really good, actually, what they talk about here.
That's Soviet. That's
yeah. So
something you'd see in
they
a
definitely
Stalinist
country.
Yeah,
and if we can't use
that kind of stuff is a little stupid.
If we can't figure out as Americans,
Like,
by the way,
I think so. Just to like kind of cut away from that a little bit, there is stuff in this that I don't agree with. They're trying to say, it's like Tucker Carlson calling the cops dressed in black and the provocateurs at riots Antifa. Like, that's not Antifa. That's cops like pretending to be Antifa. Like what they're talking about here with Soviets and communists, like, this is not communists. Like Joe Biden and the shit that they're doing with China, that's not communism. That's capitalism. These are corrupt capitalists that are fucking doing these shady business deals with foreign nationals and using their office as a way to make money. The stuff that liberals were losing their minds about Trump doing, which he was doing too. But, you know, it's in this case, they're going to defend it because it's all about your team. It's a team sport. Politics is a team sport. It's not about policy, which is what it should be about anymore. In America, it's been degenerated to a team sport and entertainment, because if it is that, you can just justify a ridiculous thing. It's the bread and circuses thing. So anyway, listen to some of this and let's talk about it.
I think that most people agree that's wrong. In
yeah,
principle.
I think so too.
Like even in my deal, the feds raided me, and over the President Biden's daughter had a diary. The feds raided my home to try to get my phones, and the ACLU, which is a liberal group, defended me. So people were like, that's crazy, we shouldn't be doing that. I think for Letitia James to run for office, I'm going to find a crime on this guy. That's just nutty.
Isn't it?
And as artists, you and I have to figure out how to wake people up to that. I don't think politics is going to wake people up. Politics is going to put people in their respective camps.
Can I say something? I think
and I've wanted to talk about this the entire time. There's cancel culture. You guys have both been victims of it, technically. But what happened with Tucker, what happened with you two, this is unprecedented. Talk about a Rubicon as well. You guys weren't just fired. You were ousted from a company you built from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
You were ousted as the #1 star on television. Tucker was #1 on cable news and was ousted. So the three of you haven't just been fired. You've actually been deplatformed and kicked out by friends, family, coworkers, the government in your case. So this, to answer your question, you say, how are we going to wake it up? I think you guys already have, just by being victims of it, because it's insane.
Yeah, people. Yeah, I mean, look at Tucker getting 100 million views on his podcast there on Twitter.
Of course he did. He's the biggest thing. And Fox News, I mean, I texted him right after he was fired or whatever, saying, you're going to be bigger than ever now.
Yeah.
I said the same thing to you,
Everyone
and I'm going
told
to
him
tell
that.
you the same thing, James. Like, it's basically the shackles are off.
When did that change? There was a point in history. It was somewhat recently.
That's what I'm asking. I don't know.
I think 2017. Your year though was a big one. I've heard.
I think me getting fired.
You were one
I
of the
think,
first.
You were like the test case.
Yeah, I think I was the test case, and you know, I had 28 between 22 and 28 million viewers. That went down to 3 million. They didn't give a damn. But
well, I'm sorry. That's the other thing. You said earlier. In
they
this
say,
episode,
everybody wherever I go, even liberals, say to me, "You got singled out where they let all these other people like just skate on it."
Oh, and then they wrote articles where you were like mentioning the same sentences like Harvey Weinstein and people that like sexually assaulted somebody because of a tweet. But
put me in there.
they
and calling me a racist.
One thing you said earlier.
I remember when Roseanne got canceled, and I was one of the people who went, you know what, she deserves it. But also I also kind of defended her because she blamed it on Ambien, and Ambien is one of the drugs, one of those pharmaceutical drugs that does make people do insane stuff. Like there's like reports about people sleep eating, like getting up and cooking meals in their sleep and eating, people just like driving places and waking up. Like Ambien, like it really messes with people. Anyway.
And I want to talk about, you said, when did corporations stop caring about money? Because even just from a straight business standpoint, right? They went from, let's say, 15 million views. Now, I think the Connors, which I hate to even say that word, is like around 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So they're losing millions and millions of dollars.
They don't care about money. That's what I was going to say.
That is a weird thing.
And Veritas
we were
is
talking
done,
about,
right?
We were talking about corporatism and corporate fascism and how
Listen to this.
corporations, when corporations and government get together, that is the very definition of fascism.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Elise.
So how is Roseanne ahead of most liberals when it comes to stuff like that? I mean, not how is she Roseanne is, which is interesting. This is another reason that I think these charges of racism and one of the, like, so just to go back to the anti-Semitism thing, which is the reason I even watched the Theo Von podcast and ended up watching this one, is because everyone was being outraged about what Roseanne said, denying the Holocaust, which is clearly a joke once you view it in context and how she set it up and everything. But the greater point that I was trying to make here is that those types of accusations, I feel like, are leveled against people. Like Joe Rogan is a good example. They call him a right winger to keep people from listening to them or from getting the full context. A lot of people will just see, Roseanne, that clip of Roseanne denying the Holocaust and go, oh, she's terrible, I F her, and they'll never look further than that. But in this day and age, I think there's a lot more people like myself who go, now, wait a minute. What is that? What's going on? What are they trying to do here? Why is this particular little piece of tape being shown? And what's the context of it? And what's the motivation behind whoever's pulled this clip out and is trying to share it and make a point with it, And the point is, don't take Roseanne seriously because she's an anti-Semite and she's a Holocaust denier. But then you dig into the context of it and you watch the whole clip, and it's a lot deeper than that. So anyway, back to this conversation here. Now that these commercials are over.
Yeah, it's a very bizarre.
And people think corporations are democratic. Come on.
No, they're getting more consolidation of ownership. Like you look at the people who invest all the money in Pfizer and Fox, the overlap is so. Have you seen? I mean, I tweeted this out. It's almost like the same exact companies own the same exact stake. So it's true. There's a relationship there, and it's bizarre. You had 28 million viewers, and it went down to 3 million, and they didn't. It's like they don't think about the end game. They don't care about where that's headed. They didn't game that out fully.
No.
They put something other principle ahead of their own success, which was to tear down talent, bang down the nail that stood up. So it's narcissistic rage. It's demonic. I mean, what is this?
Think about it. With you and Tucker. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence the three of you are considered, within the same political sphere.
So, and this is where, again, what I'm trying to get at here is it's not about the team shit. It's not about left versus right. It's not about red versus blue or conservative versus Democrat. It's about corruption versus integrity and, democracy versus a shadow government that picks who can and can't be elected. Whether you dislike Trump or you love Trump, he was obviously elected by the people. Russia didn't do it. There wasn't a secret, plot to get Trump elected. He won the election. He shocked a lot of people by doing it, of course, but he actually won. And I think that's the point, that whether you like him or not, again, he won the election, and the powers that be, again, he was one of two people that could have won the election too. It's obviously he was one of the people who had the balls and the money to get through it all. But I'm getting away from the track. I'm getting off the track here. The point is that him winning kind of exposed the quote unquote kingmakers in the legacy media to the point where they threw everything at him. And I don't, again, think that he's the answer to the problems. I think Whitney Webb has it right when it comes to that. But the fact that he upset those factions of kingmakers on its own is huge, whether you like him or not, I guess, to stop rambling now.
Currently. And the people that do the cancellations, the people that run these corporations, are on the other side of the spectrum. So
spectrum's the right word.
Yeah, but that's not a coincidence that conservatives.
Well, they're the establishment, and we're at punk rock.
I mean, have you seen?
I like that, because that's the reality. It's not about, again, left versus right. It's about the establishment versus everyone else.
I think we're punk rock.
I agree.
Or do you need to fix your?
Nope, I got it. I agree. I think we're punk rock, and the more that I think of myself that way, the more successful I'm going to be.
Me too.
Politics is, listen, generally speaking, most people in politics are narcissists, and they're about tearing down the other person to get ahead. That's not what you do. You don't tear down other people. You create. You write. You speak. You said we're creators, we're builders,
right.
Artists.
Right.
That's not what people in politics don't create anything in Washington, D.C.
They just steal public money and put it in private pockets.
Yeah.
While all the time going, hey, you're a racist. Look at your neighbor there. He's a racist, and you need to start fighting with him.
They pick winners and losers.
Yeah, they do.
And it's a zero-sum game to them.
So I think that is the core takeaway that I had from that I wanted to throw down on, is that it's not about left versus right. It's not about red versus blue. It's not about conservative versus Democrat. It's about punk rock versus authority, really. And which side are you on, motherfucker? Anyway, let's take a quick break. I got a couple more things to yap about, and then I'm gonna be out of here. But I still do have a couple things, so just bear with me here. I'll be right back.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
In 5, 4.
So, as you may or may not have seen, the reality has arrived that I don't know what I can and can't say, but the quote unquote lab leak theory is basically the answer to where you know what came from. So I wanted to show you real quick a couple things. And to do that, I'm going to share my screen with you again. And I'm going to expand this out a little bit. So check this out. So this is the official Office of the DNI report on the origins of the COVID pandemic. June 2023, fresh off the presses. So this is why I wanted to show this to you, because it's much like what the press in America does today, this report does. So table of contents, executive summary, IC assessments, WIV, so related activities. So if you'll notice, this table of contents, first of all, makes this document look like it's like insane. But look at the page numbers. It's 7 pages. So it's, like most of these sections are on page 4, 3, and 4. So what I want to do first is show you the executive summary, because if you just read the executive summary, which most people is all they do, you're going to go, yeah, okay, this doesn't really say anything, because that's kind of what it doesn't really say anything. It says this report responds to the COVID-19 Origin Act of 2023, which called for the U.S. intelligence to declassify information relating to potential links between the Wuhan Institute of Virology and the original COVID-19 pandemic. This report outlines the IC's understanding of the WIV, its capabilities, and the actions of its panel. This report does not address the merits of the 2 most likely pandemic origins hypothesis, nor does it explore other biological facilities in Wuhan. A classified annex to this report includes information that was necessary to exclude from the unclassified. So, this is like such bullshit. So it has this assessment, and it says, in March, the IC updated its analysis on core intelligence questions related to the COVID-19 origins to include whether the first human infection of the virus that causes COVID was the result of natural exposure to an infected animal or a laboratory-associated incident. Variations in IC on views of the origin of the COVID pandemic largely stem from the difference in how agencies weigh intelligence reporting in scientific publications. So this is complete bullshit. Complete and total bullshit. The National Intelligence Council and 4 other agencies assessed that the initial human infection most likely was caused by natural exposure to an infected animal. So the National Intelligence Council then are idiots, because where is the animal? There is no animal. Show us the animals that they were infected by. You can't, because there aren't any. If the original CDC director said this, if there was if this came from animal populations, it would have sprung up in other places, because bats are migratory, and so bats would have carried the virus to other places, and you would have seen it popping up in multiple places where bats migrate. But you didn't see that because it came out of the lab. So Department of Energy and the Federal Bureau of Investigation assessed that a laboratory-associated incident was the most likely cause. The CIA and others remain unable to determine the precise origin. So, of course, we don't know. We don't know. We're the CIA. We don't know. Of course. Oh God, I'm so sorry. Almost all IC agencies assess that SARS-CoV was not generally engineered. Okay, of course they. So then that's the general thing, right? So you read that and it's like, okay, there's a bunch of bullshit. And you keep going. Okay, now you're kind of getting curious. Okay, prior to the pandemic, we assessed the WIV scientists conducted extensive research on coronaviruses, which included animal sampling and genetic analysis. We continue to have no indication that the WIV's pre-pandemic research holdings include SARS-CoV-2 or close progenics. Oh, interesting. We don't know whether. So they're still saying that. So then here we go. WIV probably maintains one of the world's largest repositories of bat samples, which has enabled its coronavirus research and related public health support. Information available indicates that the WIV first possessed SARS-CoV-2 in late December 2019. Okay. In 2013, blah, blah, blah. That's since 2019. Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. And of course, this is the stuff that got glossed over at the beginning. Since 2019, some WIV researchers analyzed pangolin samples. Okay, by the end of 2019, the WIV maintained distinct teams focused on MERS and SARS coronaviruses. Both teams separately used transgenic mouse model. Okay, blah, blah, blah. That's bullshit. Genetic engineering capabilities, blah, blah, blah. Now, this is where, of course, they bury the lead, because this is where the proof is that it came out of the lab. Some WIV researchers probably did not use adequate biosafety precautions, at least some of the time prior to the pandemic, in handling SARS-like coronaviruses, increasing the risk of accidental exposure to viruses. Before the pandemic, the WIV had been working to improve at least some biosafety. So here you go. Nearly a year after the accreditation The laboratory pathogens required a higher. So that, in mid 2019, we're evaluating and implementing biosafety. So they're kind of like just going through some bullshit. Researchers performed coronavirus. So as of January 2019, WIV researchers performed SARS-like coronavirus experiments in BSL-2 laboratories, despite acknowledging, going back to 2017, of these viruses' ability to directly infect humans through their spike protein, and in early 2019, warnings of the degree of this practice. Separately, the WIVs plan to conduct analysis of potential epidemic viruses from penguin samples in fall 2019, suggest researchers sought to isolate live viruses. So you get the idea. That report is a bunch of jumbled together bullshit that doesn't say anything specific, because that's the job of it's supposed to do, is obfuscate to, ridiculous levels about something that we largely know where it came from now. And I'm going to go back to a clip I believe I played last time from your boy Robert at Rising, because he breaks it down very, very accurately and quickly. And I'm just going to let him do that. So listen.
Gained tremendous legitimacy this week as the Wall Street Journal confirmed independent reports from friends of the show, Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger, that the earliest outbreak occurred at the Wuhan Institute of Virology in November 2019. Patient 0 are now...
So they found the patient 0 again, and that's what this Director of National Intelligence report is, a bullshit obfuscation that tries to pretend that we just still don't know. The CIA is like, oh, we don't know. What are we? What do we do? We're not the Central Intelligence Agency or anything. We just don't know.
Now presumed to be 3 Chinese scientists, at least one of whom, Ben Hu, worked extensively on gain-of-function research, the manipulation of viruses to make them more dangerous, which was funded by grants from the U.S. federal government. Those cases occurred in November 2019, well before the Hunan wet market outbreak favored by some in the scientific community as the more likely origin story, and they occurred among the very people one would most suspect in the event of a lab accident. This is quite damning, to say the least. Anyone still clinging to an animal origin theory, remember the pangolins and the raccoon dogs? They're cute, is running up against Occam's razor. Assuming the intelligence reports are accurate and that Hu and his colleagues did contract the earliest cases of COVID-19, the implications are fairly earth-shattering. Let's be frank. This would mean that substandard safety protocols at the Wuhan lab probably unleashed a killer pathogen on the rest of the planet, and the Chinese government attempted to cover it up. China, however, is hardly the only government on the hook. The lab leak also means that research paid for by U.S. tax dollars and vouched for by coronavirus czar Anthony Fauci, the nation's foremost advocate of gain-of-function, is partly to blame for a pandemic that killed millions of people worldwide. Fauci, the very person tasked with leading the U.S. response to COVID-19, was in charge of the government agency that gave Hu the gain-of-function research initially sickened the researcher who got sick with COVID first millions of dollars to experiment with bat coronaviruses.
And that right there is why they're releasing bullshit reports that obfuscate that reality. And like I said before, the way that science works is you have a theory and then you use evidence to back up your theory. The lab leak theory has evidence. Like Robbie just explained to you. They discovered patient 0, the first person to contract COVID at that lab that experiments with COVID with coronaviruses. They have yet to find the infected animal. So you can't just say that's where it came from. Scientists that still believe that, or agencies that believe that, you can't just say, oh, well, we still believe it came from nature, and then not present any evidence to back that claim up. Where is your evidence? You don't have any, then we have the answer. It's like Robbie just told you. So the next person who piped up about this was the always intelligent Keith Olbermann. And what's interesting now is all of the people who pushed this bullshit are trying to serve up copium and trying to pretend that they didn't push this bullshit, and they're trying to call anyone and everyone else a conspiracy theorist or call people names that might have proved them wrong. So I may have covered this before, but no, actually, I know I didn't. I'm going to cover this right now because in light of what we just discussed, here's what Keith Olbermann did.
We had 2024 Democratic presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on Rising this past week, and he talked about all things COVID, transgender athletes, and of course aliens. But now it seems like there's been a call to cancel us. Former CNN sports commentator Keith Olbermann tweeted on Friday in response to our interview and RFK Jr.'s comments on the lab leak theory of COVID-19. Dear The Hill, you forfeited your right to keep doing this. Fire these conspiracy nuts, Robbie Suave and Bree Joy. I guess that's you, Bree Joy.
Twitter handle.
Oh, I got it. Okay. Shutter the operation, close down the cameras. Hope you can regain your credibility as a sorta news organization.
Yeah, and an important part of this story is that, unsurprisingly, he received quite the ratio. For those who don't live on the internet, that means you have a bad ratio of comments to likes, a lot more people commenting basically to tell you that you're wrong, compared with the number of people who liked the tweet to tell you that you were right.
I wish he had done this in video format because I miss his just thunderous, breathless commentary. The worst people in the world, Brianna Joy Gray and Robbie Suave.
This is what's so.
Yeah, so that's how ridiculous this has gotten. That people like Keith Olbermann can't even fathom the fact that they look like absolutely ridiculous morons at this point who pushed bullshit because they were so morally sure of themselves and so full of authority on this subject that they were dunking on all the dummies and conspiracy theorists who could possibly put two and two together and think critically about this. How dare they? And so I coined a new term recently, and I'm going to just give this term to the world because that's the kind of generous person that I am. And that term is brunch lib. So it's kind of a combination of brunch Democrat and shit lib. But I think it's the Disneyized version of shit lib, because as much as I love the term shit lib, you have to say the word shit to use it, and then you're immediately a bad person because you cussed. So if you need to call someone a shit lib in front of children, you can use the term brunch lib from now on. And brunch libs like Keith Olbermann just wanting to cope so hard on the COVID stuff, but I would like to remind y'all, brunch libs, that if you are very pro-COVID vax, I just want to remind y'all who you need to thank. And you need to thank Donald Trump and Operation Warp Speed. And this is a great Twitter account. It's the archive of Donald Trump's administration's tweets, so you can literally go through the White House Twitter archive for the 4 years he was president and see everything they served up. There's a lot of retweets of Donald himself. I'm glad that Elon freed the president, the former president. But watch this real quick. Oh, maybe it's not going to play for me. It's probably not on the server anymore. Okay, well, I'm not going to fight with that right now, but this is from December 11th of 2020. If it had not been for Donald Trump, this is a quote from the video. if it not had been for Donald Trump's personal leadership, we would not be seeing a Pfizer vaccine, and hopefully in the next week, a Moderna approved vaccine. So you got to thank former President Donald Trump and Operation Warp Speed for the vaccine, right? And so as we close out tonight, so I want to talk a little bit about RFK, which I just kind of touched on in Mehdi Hassan's little, or not Mehdi Hassan. We just kind of talked about RFK in Rising's bit there, because Keith Olbermann called them conspiracy theorists for interviewing RFK Jr. Well, people like this guy Mehdi Hassan, another brunch lib, they went so far as to defend Peter Hotez. So just to back up a little bit, because most people know about this, but I'm just going to just retread this ground real quick. So RFK Jr. was on Joe Rogan, and as a result of that, there was a whole back and forth about Peter Hotez potentially coming on Joe Rogan to debate RFK Jr. and to basically debate his claims. And the argument is that, hey, the truth doesn't mind being questioned, you know, and if Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is such a crazed, you know, lunatic with anti-vax viewpoints, then wouldn't it be, you know, in your best interest and in the best interest of the country, Mr. Hotez, to go on TV and poke holes, or, you know, show Americans why he's wrong and where he's wrong? But no, you know, Hotez is not going to do that. And so he ran to MSNBC, Bill Gates's MSNBC station, to, you know, vaccine investor Bill Gates's MSNBC channel, to hide behind Mehdi Hassan here. And, you know, here's Mehdi Hassan. Imagine living in a world where you could just go around insisting people debate you no matter who the topic or who they are, and have the right to agree to it. Where would it end? Okay, I'll start. Martin Scorsese, debate me on the Marvel movies, good or bad. Debate me, coward. And so in response to Mehdi, I created this meme that he wrote a book called Win Every Argument. And so I kind of just, you know, this is my meme based on Mehdi's book, Win Every Argument. Broadcast vague accusations from your studio. Refuse to talk to the people you're making accusations about. And that pretty much sums up Mehdi's debate tactic right there. And boy, is he awesome. So I had a good week this week, dismantling brunch libs. And another person who chimed in is on the whole Joe Rogan and RFK Jr. thing, is Eve 6. And I don't know if you know who Eve 6 is. Most people probably don't. They had one hit song back in the day called Inside Out, and the song goes, I would swallow my pride, I would choke on the rind, but the lack thereof would make me empty inside. Swallow my doubt and turn it inside out. Now, in the faith in nothing but the pounds and the heart in the blender. Watch it spin around. So this guy is another very famous brunch libber, a guy with a lot of brunch lib takes. And he weighed in on the Joe Rogan RFK Hotez debate. I didn't realize. So another one of the things that people are saying about RFK is because he is very fit at his age, that he's on steroids. I don't know if there's any truth to that claim. Maybe he is taking some kind of a growth hormone or testosterone. Maybe. I don't know what the veracity of those claims are, but it is interesting that like these people are defending Hotez, this little fat guy, from a guy like RFK Jr. who's actually in good shape and looks healthy. And Hotez is supposed to be some kind of like health expert, right? But for whatever reason, he can't he can't have a healthy debate about why RFK Jr.'s views are incorrect and why he is the foremost authority on everything related to vaccines. You know, walk that walk, Mr. Hotez. Respectfully, if you are the credentialed doctor that you claim to be, back up your claims. Let's see it. It should be very easy to make RFK look stupid if that's the case. But no, these brunch libs, like Eve 6 here, are going to go, if a guy takes a lot of anabolic steroids, that means they're credible on vaccine science. No, it's brunch lib. Brunch lib, please. Brunch lib, please. That's what I'm going to start saying. Brunch lib, please. Come on. So, brunch lib, please. There is much more to this debate than a guy on steroids and, having credible views on vaccine science. RFK Jr., first of all, backs up the claims he's making with sources. And then the other thing none of these brunch libs talk about is RFK's approaching this in the most correct way possible and saying, hey, look, if I'm wrong, I'll change my mind. Imagine that. Imagine like not being so rigid and going like, hey, if you show me better evidence, I will agree. I'll go, wow, that's better evidence. You're right. I was wrong about that. Imagine a world where that happened and we didn't just all rope ourselves off into our little stupid little political cults and go like, I'm smarter than you. I'm smarter than you. Well, I go to church, so my views are very important. Well, I go to synagogue, so my views are important. Well, I go to a mosque, so my views are more important than yours, gay person. Well, I'm gay, so my views are more important than yours, Jesus lover. It's we have become this stupid cacophony of cultism when we all really, anyway, I'm getting away from the point. So what I did was I took and I put this song together for my boy Eve 6, and I basically used a karaoke version of his song Inside Out. And anyway, here's my version real quick for you. Past experience, hold on, let me start this over. I don't learn from past experience. So I just want to tell you, so I said I don't learn from past experience because back in the 70s, the U.S. paid people that were paralyzed by a swine flu vaccine, and this was in 1976. That's 78. This was published. That's how bad my eyes are. This was published in 78, but I believe that the actual flu happened 2 years earlier in 76. Correct me if I'm wrong. I might be wrong on that. Anyway. Don't learn from past experience because we were forced vaccinated before and a bunch of people had adverse effects. Then the second bar is about Vioxx and OxyContin, because those are both drugs that pharmaceutical companies pushed on people that had very dangerous and basically had terrible effects on people, ruined lives. And with Vioxx, like a bunch of people had heart attacks. And the drug companies had to pay these massive fines for wrongdoing and stuff. OxyContin, Vioxx, hell, I'm buying anything they sell. I've never heard of corporate capture. So corporate capture is when industries take over the government, or they capture the regulators that are supposed to regulate them. Anti-science jerks. How does a vaccine even work? So in this part of the song, what I'm showing is that a vaccine works by a vaccine-induced immunity is acquired through the introduction of a killed, weakened form of the diseased organism through vaccination. So the point there is that vaccination uses your natural immunity. So the whole thing about natural immunity was stupid. Anyway, I'll keep going. I believe what the TV tells me. Never mind the sponsorships. So that just shows that 75% of ad budget comes from pharma companies. What is a conflict of interest? And that's a conflict of interest because when 75% of your budget comes from these companies, you're not going to be critical of them in any way as a news organization.
I don't even know. I'll ignore all the facts. Take the Donald Trump facts. Pretend it's normal for teenagers to have heart attacks. Swallow my doubt.
So I showed you earlier that Operation Warp Speed is Trump made the vax. So
And get the jab right now because it's safe and effective. Still contracted COVID after 7 boosters, but at least Big Pharma made $100 billion. Warp speed vaccines are good for you.
yeah, I'll just let you listen to the second verse.
I don't learn from past experience. Mentally oh so frail. I'm buying anything they sell. I believe what the TV tells me. Never mind the sponsorships. What is a conflict of interest? I don't even know. I'll ignore all the facts. Take the Donald Trump facts. Pretend it's normal for teenagers to have heart attacks. Swallow my doubt and get the jab right now because it's safe and effective. Still contracted COVID after 7 boosters, but at least Big Pharma made $100 billion. Warp speed vaccines are good for you.
So there you have it. I'm sure there's other stuff that is on my list that I could probably keep going, but it's been about 2 hours and I'm going to shut it down, y'all. Thank you for paying attention to my videos. Like and subscribe, all that junk. And I got mad love for y'all. Take care of yourselves out there. Citizens of the internet, be excellent to each other.